What is the Xbox expansion pass? I don't know. Oh, hello. Greetings. I am 343 Guilty Spark, monitor of Installation 04. Greetings to all of you reclaimers here on Xbox Expansion Pass. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Tim Dodabo. Yes, this is my real voice. And yes, I would be there, but you blew me out of the sky. Congratulations on this, man. This is momentous. Almost 100 episodes of this. I can't believe it. Oh, I remember when I was 100, so very, very long ago. Xbox expansion.
Welcome one, welcome all to episode 98 of the Xbox Expansion Pass, recorded on Sunday, September 5th, 2021. I am your host, Luke Lohr, the InsipidGhost. In this episode, we set expectations for the upcoming Xbox showcase in the Tokyo Game Show. We'll postulate the return of Alan Wake with remastered rumors surfacing, and Far Cry 6 impressions are now out in the wild. After that, we'll speak with Scott Miller, the founder of Apogee Entertainment, whom in the 90s were known as the original indie publisher. We'll discuss their upcoming title Residual and their return to indie publishing. Enjoy. Yet another week of gaming is upon us and behind us. Welcome to XEP, discussing all things in the Gamerverse as they pertain to the Xbox ecosystem. And as I am wont to do each and every week, I like to start the show by offering words of kindness to those who have made my gaming week better. And this week, the shout out goes to content creator Neo GameSpark. Neo's always in my social timelines, spreading positivity, going out of his way to be kind, share the likes, the retweets, the love with content creators, myself included. And in general, it's just a feel-good thing. So Neo, I don't know if you listen to XEP, but if you do, I really appreciate what it is you're doing out there in the gaming space. And if not, I'm always happy to send good vibes your way. You are appreciated, my friend. Well, guys, we've got plenty of Xbox gaming talk to get to, but I thought a bit of XEP housekeeping was in order, given that we are on episode 98, and episode 100 is coming down the pipeline. This week, of course, we have the interview with Apogee Entertainment. Next week, we're talking to Kritsia Bios, who is a voice actor that I think you will be very impressed with once you hear what it is she's worked on, is working on, and some teases to future content throughout the gaming world, including that of Gotham Knights, which is really cool. That said, as far as episode 100 goes, all of the plans that I had laid out have fallen through the wayside, and I simply don't know what it is I'm going to be doing to celebrate at this point. Now, this is not some terrible thing. I'm in no way upset about it. In fact, of late, since returning to work and seeing so many of my students back kind of in their natural elements of school, but having to be masked up, some of them terrified of getting sick, others coming from homes where they don't even value the science of vaccinations. It has really put a lot of things into perspective. And so as much as I've been stressing trying to grow XEP, celebrate episode 100, lock in an interview here and there, get guests, all that stuff's been kind of put in perspective. And in many ways, it's like a weight has been lifted from my shoulders in seeing what is truly important and what is meant to be relaxing and a hobby. And I always say that I want XEP to be my hobby and something that I really enjoy doing. And I have. But when you have like a big monumentous thing for a solo endeavor like XEP, and then you're landing on episode 100, you want to blow the socks off everybody, have a big guest, talk to Xbox proper and see if they can't get you somebody, or talk to the biggest gaming people, the biggest anything, right? Like any of that could have happened, but nothing has just worked out the way I was hoping it would, and all of that has felt just fine and okay, and I'm not upset. And I say that sincerely. I'm bummed on like one sense, sure, but I'm really not like losing my mind over it. And so it might be just me for episode 100, and that is totally fine, because if you've been with me for this show, you know that why it was started, you know the reasons it was started, and you know the goals of the show are simply to help celebrate positivity and gaming and approach gaming news from the angle of Xbox coverage. How does this impact the Xbox ecosystem, as it were, whatever the news may be. And I feel we've been doing that for 100 episodes, and I'm really, really proud of that. I met some incredible people, and I plan for the show to keep going. It simply may be that episode 100 passes by with a wink and a nod and an appreciative thank you to all the people that listen, and no major guests, and that's totally fine with me, especially after the last few weeks. I feel like we've gotten a lot of great people onto the show. In fact, I'm really excited for you guys to hear this upcoming interview with Apogee and then Kritzia as well. Kritzia was just a special interview. I really enjoyed hearing from her. But, I think I'm going to give away a controller over on the old Twitterverse. I have one of those Sonic Blue controllers. I accidentally bought two when the Series X came out, and so I still have one sealed up, unopened, and I'm thinking I might give away that due to... So if you have an iTunes review you'll be able to enter. As long as you have an iTunes review of the show, you'll be able to enter on Twitter. I'll set that up accordingly. Just keep an eye out on the Twitter space for that one. But yeah, as far as housekeeping goes, that's what I'm looking forward to with episode 100. I'll also say of late, I have started to grow out of some of the content creators that I used to listen to for a long time, and by no means is that a bad thing either. We all grow and move on, and I'm looking for all-around content creation video game coverage, if that were to make sense. I used to really listen to a lot of like IGN shows and Kind of Funny, and I've just kind of grown away from that in some ways. I've discovered Skill Up, which I really enjoy. Todd Oxter recommended Arlo and Kevin Kenson, and I really enjoyed that as well now. But if you have content creators that celebrate gaming, bring positivity, bring analytics to bring analysis to their coverage, I really enjoy that. I'm celebrating the return of What's Good Games. That's been really nice to have. They're a mainstay in my rotation as well. But I would love some recommendations for gaming coverage that comes from an analytical approach as well. As we all grow, we grow in and out of content. You may have grown into this show or out of it at some point, and that is absolutely fine. No one should be slanted or slighted in that respect, because if we're all in it for the right reasons, we'll find things we like and things that are not for us. And I'm totally down with that the whole way. Those are my calls to action. Drop an iTunes review before episode 100, and I'll be mega appreciative there. If you could give me some suggestions for who to listen to, and know that I appreciate all of you listening. That's kind of the stuff I wanted to drop at the top of the show, as opposed to the back. So there you go. Yeah. The gaming news. There is a lot to talk about of late. One of them being PlayStation State of Play and Xbox Tokyo Game Show. And I linked these for a couple reasons. First and foremost, I want to talk about the PlayStation State of Play here on this Xbox show, because we're expected to have some pretty big news, all things considered, for the PlayStation space, and that's likely going to impact how Microsoft does things going forward. Now, Sony went ahead and announced that their State of Play would be a 30-minute event that would take place on Thursday, September 9th, and would focus on Deathloop, indies, and third-party titles. Deathloop is in that strange space where it's being made by Bethesda, who is now owned by Xbox, and Microsoft is honoring the contract, of course. A lot of people are very excited about what Deathloop brings to the table. Dave Fennoy, of course, voicing one of the characters. I have noted that several times as I listen to different coverage pieces for it. I know that stands out. The gameplay looks really cool and very reminiscent of Dishonored, which is appropriate given the developers. But a lot of people are looking to this game not just as a PlayStation exclusive, of which it is a timed exclusive, but of what it means from Bethesda going forward in terms of their quality, their efforts, and things they might be bringing to the Xbox ecosystem down the line. For now, though, PlayStation fans should absolutely celebrate. This game looks great. I'm anxious to see how the State of Play changes perceptions for anybody out there. I've been rather lukewarm on wanting to play it, despite being impressed by it. It hasn't looked like my type of game with that kind of resetting of time and kind of going back through. But State of Play might really change that. There are also said to be a number of indie titles, and PlayStation has had an awkward relationship with a lot of indie developers of late. They started off very strongly with the PlayStation 4 generation and indies, and of late that has waned, and there's been a lot of mixed messaging for how they feel about indies, and Microsoft, for their part, has seemingly been, pouring on the love to the indie space, as you would do if you're not in first place with your AAA catalog. I think also the third parties that we're set to see here, including perhaps maybe the Grand Theft Auto trilogy remaster. Some people are suggesting Call of Duty Vanguard will be there, which I'm not sure will happen. It's almost clear that we're going to get an Avengers update with Spider-Man, seeing as how Spider-Man is a specific exclusive character to the PlayStation community. I'm interested, of course, as an Avengers fan, to know how Crystal Dynamics and Square are going to handle Spider-Man being exclusive there, given that, fans have been asking for crossplay. They just released the Wakanda expansion. Moreover, it's the business side of it, because Spider-Man could very well determine the fate of Avengers, the game, as it were, in the business sense. The presence of Spider-Man, how well done he is, could really determine a lot of things, because that character will bring in a lot of people, but will they come in and then immediately bounce? That's the question. If you want a third-person action game, a Black Panther game, you've got it if you play Avengers, but if you want a looter shooter, that's way more up for debate, and I hear that. Yeah, I want to see how they navigate the business of that. As far as the Call of Duty, Vanguard being there, I maybe there's a lot. That game is coming in so hot. I'm very curious to know just what's going to happen with it. While I've heard a lot of struggles about Battlefield, which is an Xbox partner, I've heard a lot of difficulty there. I really wonder where Call of Duty lives between Battlefield and Halo Infinite. There's a lot of questions to be answered there. It's going to be an interesting fall, no doubt. With so many rumors swirling around Grand Theft Auto as well, is the state of play where we see that happen? Does Rockstar want to, really solidify their relationship with PlayStation going through this PlayStation 5 generation? They've been very close with PlayStation over the last few years. They've certainly not shunned Xbox, but they seem to have been more keen to work with Sony. So there's a lot of wondering of what kind of third parties we might see in a 30-minute window on a Sony stage, as it were. Metaphorical stage, of course. And with Deathloop in there, that presents a little bit of an asterisk. A lot of fans, myself included, are wondering if we see God of War Ragnarok there, or if any new information about Horizon Forbidden West comes out. I bring these up because they could very well paint the landscape of competition for 2022. Where does Xbox put their AAA titles in competition with Horizon Forbidden West? I have to wonder if Xbox even tries to compete with Horizon, given that, in November, December, they've got Forza Horizon 5 and then Halo Infinite coming out. Will they try to compete with PlayStation in any particular way? I see them giving Horizon Forbidden West a wide berth. I don't see Xbox trying to release anything major alongside it. However, announcements to compete, announcements to occupy news space might be coming in and around that, and it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. God of War Ragnarok, which is among my most anticipated titles for next year, if it makes next year, which I don't think it's going to. I really want to know anything about that, but I don't think that you would hear about God of War Ragnarok or anything on that level at a State of Play. I think you save that for a Game Awards. And I think it's the Game Awards where we see some of the heavy hitters of 2022, be it from Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, or any of our major third-party publishers like EA or Activision. Whatever it is they might have, I think they're more likely to show off their biggest and best at a Game Awards, give it to Keighley, who has a bigger audience than Xbox would on their own socials or their own spaces, than PlayStation would on their own socials, their own spaces. So, a lot of interesting stuff there. I have heard thoughts of a Bluepoint acquisition, and I don't think you would hear about that in the State of Play. I don't think there's enough smoke before the fire in this small window of time. We know that Bluepoint works closely with them. I fully expect Bluepoint to be acquired at some point by PlayStation, but I feel like we'd be hearing more about that at this point in time, if indeed it was going to be happening. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot to... By the time you're hearing the next episode of XEP, we'll have these answers. But I love hearing acquisition talk and just what exclusivity deals mean, because then it means we get to kind of break down, is there a tit for tat? Does the other competitor, I should say, do anything to build competition? These are the fun elements of it. While there's a State of Play happening, the Tokyo Game Show is set to happen towards the end of September. And Microsoft will have a presence there. We know that. That's a big deal for Xbox to be present at the Tokyo Game Show, because we've seen Phil Spencer go out of his way several times to talk about strengthening their hold on studios in Japan. They want to build relationships with studios in Japan. We know that that's part of the Bethesda acquisition was to get, I want to say Ghostwire Tokyo. Is that the right studio? Oh my gosh, terrible job on my part planning notes. But they want to have development studios in Japan specifically to build a relationship with Japanese and wider Asian audiences. That said, Aaron Greenberg was very quick to come out on Twitter and set appropriate expectations for the Tokyo Game Show. And he said, quote, "Since you asked, Tokyo Game Show is for our players in Japan and across Asia. Expect regionally relevant updates, but no major reveals or announcements as our game teams are focused on continuing to ship big releases across October, November, and December," end quote. And I think that's great. I'm very glad that he came out and addressed this. Every single showcase, every single announcement slate, every single time that Xbox or PlayStation or EA or anybody could have an announcement, it can't be the biggest, best thing every time. And I wish that we as a gaming community would kind of rally around that sentiment. It need not be the biggest thing every time. For this one, I want to see Xbox successful in Japan because that means bigger and better things for Xbox worldwide, for gamers worldwide. I think the cloud announcements that came in last week about playing Gen 9 stuff on Gen 8 hardware, you'll be able to play next-gen games via cloud on last-gen hardware. To me, that's a huge win and a huge boon, and I think that's going to help enter into a lot of gaming markets that they weren't previously in, including Asia. That's not to say that you're going to have a lot of Xbox Ones in Korea, in Japan, because we know that's not the case. But it is going to mean that you're having cloud infrastructure built upon and spread throughout the world and improved consistently over time, which would mean that you can be playing Xbox games whenever, however, wherever you would like. My online internet nemesis, Adam Leonard from the Megadads, they just launched a fall preview. Congratulations to them. He tweeted out that there is no Xbox game that he was interested in and thus hasn't bought an Xbox Series S or X, isn't interested in any of their games, really. But the ones that he has, he's been able to tackle via Game Pass on his PC. And soon people like him that have similar sentiments can do the same thing via the cloud anywhere they like. And we shouldn't be upset about that. You know what I mean? We should not be upset about that at all. We're welcoming more people into our ecosystem to play games whenever, wherever, however they like on whatever devices they are able. I'm down with that sentiment. I am down with that sentiment. I took no offense in his statement or those like them because we just want people to play games. What do I care what plastic box they're using as long as I'm able to play with them? Crossplay being the biggest thing. If you're a third-party game, make crossplay. I cannot tell you how frustrating it is to have to worry about what platform a friend is playing on. That is just, it's just mind-boggling to me. We know now that crossplay can be done with ease. A lot of people point Sony a lot of blame. In some cases, it's justified. In others, it's just exaggerant internet talk. But we know that crossplay is so doable. We shouldn't be charging for it. We should be helping players connect with one another because that builds ecosystems. And rising tides lift all boats. Why do we not want that, right? Why would we not want that? I'm looking at you, Avengers. My goal was to say Avengers way too many times for any rational content creator to say during a show. All right, let's take a break from that one and then move into Alan Wake Remastered. Goodness gracious, a Taiwanese outlet has made the digital faux pas in releasing, or leaking I should say, that Alan Wake Remastered is coming as early as October 5th. That is a month from the time of this recording. By technicality, it is not officially revealed. Who knows? By the time you're listening to this, it will be. But multiple outlets have confirmed via their own independent sources that Alan Wake Remastered is a thing. I think this is a totally expected announcement. We knew Alan Wake, despite being an Xbox 360 exclusive, we knew that when they recovered that brand, when Control found success with its DLC, with its game proper, that Remedy wanted to see Alan Wake reborn and brought to new gamers. And so the leaks are showing both Xbox versions and PlayStation versions. I have no problem with this either. I think it's awesome. More people need to play Alan Wake. I absolutely loved that game when it first came out. I'm anxious to hear, or rather I should say to see, how it has aged, how it has... how this major exclusive of its time will now be looked back on when we play it with kind of modern expectations? Will it be like Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, where, you boot it up and you start and you're like, yes, I loved this game back in the day. And then you start playing it and you're like, oh boy, games have come a long way since. And then you put it down after an hour or so. Or will I be as enthralled as I once was with it? I think Alan Wake is one of the best games ever made in its time, right? Will it have aged well? Do people expect it to be like Control? Because it is not. This is a narrative story game. You're a Ghostbuster with a flashlight playing through a very, very impressive narrative with a lot of acting, and it's meant to be experienced, not to be rushed. There are moments of this game that are pure action. There are moments of this game that are pure horror. There are moments of this game where it is a walking simulator meant for you to contemplate the decisions you've made. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how Alan Wake has evolved and just what it brings to the table. I hope that it reignites the Alan Wake brand, and no, indeed, I am not worried that it is on multiple consoles. I want more people playing Alan Wake because I want more Alan Wake. So if this interests you, please reach out and let me know at InsipidGhost on Twitter. Let me know if this game is for you, if you have fond memories like I do of Alan Wake, if you're expecting that we'll play a full-on remaster, or is this going to be, upscaled kind of on the hardware and we're calling it a day. You never know with remasters, but we'll see there. This is a day one buy for me. Like, the moment it happens, I'm buying this bad boy. I want this thing to happen. And at this point, I'm expecting that it is real because I've seen multiple outlets verify through their independent sources. So a Taiwanese leak looks to be dropping in early October. October 5th is what I saw in a few spaces. And it is no longer Xbox exclusive. We're not upset about that. We're very happy that this game is back. Let me just remind everyone. Additionally, Far Cry 6 previews are now out into the wild. It looks like more Far Cry, which is what we expected it to be. There's some changes to the bullet shooting system in which you need to alter your ammo type to be the inverse of whatever armor the person is wearing. And in most of the previews, people weren't really keen on it. They said it was more an annoyance than anything else. I do not like unloading clips into enemies, reloading, unloading more clips until they eventually fall by the wayside. That was a problem I had with The Division. I very much feel that, like, if you shoot somebody in the head in a video game, it should do crit damage and kill them. Whereas in, like, The Division, you would unload clips. I've seen some coverage where if the game player at the time did not match the proper ammo type, they just unloaded clip after clip after clip. And I have no interest in that. That said, I've heard it other ways. I am very lukewarm on Far Cry. I did reach out and request a code. You never know if you're going to get them, but I'm very, very much thinking that if a code doesn't come through, I'm going to hold off on coverage for this one. I don't see myself in a crowded October with Back 4 Blood, Alan Wake, and a couple other games dropping that I'm very interested in. I don't see myself setting time aside for more Far Cry. I was really tired of that formula after playing Far Cry 5, which I didn't enjoy all that much, and the drug trips were just not my jam. I don't think I'll be giving you guys personal impressions until the game goes on sale and I have time, or a code comes through and I feel obligated to provide, worthwhile coverage and set aside the time. So that's kind of where my head is at with Far Cry. I'm curious, are you guys looking forward to Far Cry? Is this something you're actually keen and excited about? I'm not sure this is the window of time where I care about Far Cry any longer. I think with a crowded fall of some heavy hitters that I'm very interested in, some AA and indie titles I'm very interested in, this would have been a better January game. And in fact, there's a lot of games I think would be better January, February, March games, but we'll see. Maybe not February of 2022, because goodness, that is a crowded time. When I look at the February 2022 list, I think to myself, all right, 3 of these are getting delayed, because that is a packed slate for sure. But nonetheless, yeah, Far Cry, that's there. It's a thing. All right. Before we get to our interview with Apogee Entertainment, let's rock some listener mail here. This one comes from Sean McGorry. It was a great question that it made me scratch my head and go, And I'm wondering if Todd Oxtra doesn't write in after the show and have some thoughts as well. It says, what happened to all the Nintendo Xbox links? They seem to have completely died. Game Pass on Switch, Nintendo using Azure, Mario drawn as Master Chief. Anything for Tokyo Game Show? Or is this rumor run wild? That's a good question. We really did hear a lot about Xbox and Nintendo in 2020 and 2019, I should say. And in large part, a lot of those rumors have died down. We have seen a couple times during Phil Spencer interviews that Switch is on his shelf. He says it was a gift from Nintendo, who their American offices are just down the street from Xbox. But yeah, you're right. We haven't really seen a whole lot happening as far as relationship building. Of course, you did have Banjo and Minecraft Steve in Smash Brothers, which is cool. But yeah, we've not really heard much about the Nintendo Xbox rumors of late. In large part, I remember a release not too long ago, within the last month, of documents that said essentially Nintendo is not really interested in having Game Pass on their hardware for the time being, and Microsoft is moving on to make sure that they can get Game Pass in other places. This, I think, was tied to documents that came out of the Apple lawsuit, which is interesting. I mean, it's interesting, but like, all right. It's odd to think how much that rumor mill was going, and now we no longer hear hardly anything about it. I think as Smash Brothers dies down, so too does a lot of the surrounding hoopla of the characters. I know that I personally am not interested in Smash Brothers at all, unless it's Doom Guy or Master Chief come to the game. Just too many sword fighters, and it really wasn't for me. I don't like the way the Switch is being handled. But I think that is where a lot of the Xbox rumors are tied together. But there was a lot to celebrate there. To see Nintendo and Xbox getting along is great. With Tokyo Game Show coming up, would you see something? I don't really think so. Not based on Aaron Greenberg's wording about the show. I think they would tease something a little bit more. However, set expectations accordingly, yada, yada, yada. It's a great question, Sean, but I don't know the answer. And I think because I don't even have an inkling of the answer, perhaps these rumors should be null and void for a bit there. Good question. The next one comes from Mr. Seamus. The famous Seamus. The most famous Seamus that I've ever met. And my best friend. Way better than Mr. Badbit, I might add. He says, what are your thoughts about companies quickly changing their ideas when they receive backlash? Do you immediately forgive them for their error in judgment? Seamus is likely referencing the walkback that Sony had to provide regarding Horizon Forbidden West. Initially, they had stated wording that made it implied that if you bought Horizon Forbidden West on PS4 and then purchased a PS5, that game would upgrade with you for free. And then it came out that wasn't the case, and fan backlash online, Sony reversed that decision, and now there's going to be a free upgrade path for users on PS4. This is very similar, the way that fans reacted, and then something was changed very quickly, to when Xbox Live Gold was announced to be doubling in price, or rather I should say not bundled for a discount, and fans went nuts. Fans went absolutely nuts. And I think companies should quickly change their ideas when things are not received well, and fans should be holding companies' feet to the fire. It doesn't matter what company it is. I was outraged and annoyed to no end at that Xbox Live price hike. It did not affect me because I was a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber and am, and so it would not have impacted me. But it's important that as gamers within an ecosystem, we help the stewards of our ecosystem hear the calls for change, hear the calls for, I'm going to say the word righteousness, but that sounds like I'm being all high and mighty. I just mean like being responsible and fair to your consumers, to your customers, the people that make you money, the people that spend their money with you. You need to make sure you treat them right. And I think it's important we hold companies' feet to the fire on that. We also need to be objective in those things. It is an absolute win for Sony fans that PlayStation capitulated and backed down on their charging $10 more for an upgrade path for their PS4 users. The need for that dwindles with every PS5 sold, right? Like there's less people affected the more PS5s that are sold. That said, what about the 110 million users? Every generation, users are left behind. You can look at the number of units sold and how companies handle that. I mean, there's 110 plus million PS4s out there. There are roughly 50 million Xbox Ones out there. And this is the first time that we're seeing companies try this cross-gen thing for an extended period of time. And in Xbox's case, trying to have this cross-gen appeal so that old hardware isn't useless by way of the cloud. But if you had a Nintendo, if you wanted to play Super Nintendo games, you had to upgrade. There was no if, and, or but there. If you had a PlayStation and you wanted to play PlayStation 2 games, you had to upgrade. there's a little caveat in there that PlayStation at one point themselves was building in back-compat versions, and then they started that with PS3 and then abandoned it entirely on PS4. It's just a changing landscape, but really and truly, consumers and gamers have more access to companies than they ever did before thanks to social media. They should be holding companies' feet to the fire and making sure they're doing right, and they call out tomfoolery when they see it. Just keep in mind, if your social feed, and I'm talking to anybody at this point, if your social feed is all defending of a company or all attacking a company, then maybe we need to readjust our alignment and our values there. If your social feed is all attacking players over something and going after people that like something different than you, well, then you're a tool, guys. Now, we've got Daniel M. Daniel M. writes it with a great question. How'd you like that pregnant pause, guys? Just thought I'd get you a little bit. He says, what skins would you like to see in Halo Infinite, third party or even first party, like Doom Guy? So he's referring to the idea that special skins might come to Halo Infinite. Think about that samurai armor. Would they do armor inspired by other franchises as well? I believe this came from a Jez Corden tweet in which he was trying to incite the fans about, which franchise was better, Halo or Gears, and that he wanted Gears armor in Halo. Dano, I have long been a proponent of seeing cross-pollination with franchises. I think that's really important. I wanted to see more Halo in Gears 5. I loved seeing those two Halo Reach characters in Halo 5. I wanted more of that. In Forza Horizon 5, we darn well better have more than one Halo level. We should be riding through a bridge over some Sea of Thieves battles. We should be going through an area in which there's a Gears of War monster out there doing its thing, fighting through a Brumac. We should be driving through all these things. I want to see cross-pollination in everything. Sea of Thieves does this very well. They could do better by having some outfits inspired by different things. As far as Halo Infinite armor, go nuts. Have some fun. Keep the core of Halo, but let it be armor inspired by Gears. Let it be armor inspired by Sea of Thieves, inspired by Forza Horizon. I'll fight in Halo looking like a Toyota Corolla. You think I won't? This is a free-to-play multiplayer experience, and if you can keep the core of what is Halo there, you need to let fans play in that space and have some fun. We've seen it be done successfully with games like Fortnite. We've seen it be done successfully in small quantities with Forza Horizon 4 and in Gears of War 5, but let people play with it. Let them enjoy that space. It need not be such a pure space that you can't have some fun in the multiplayer slate, Battlefront 2 went through this. People were like, can we play as a pink Darth Vader? That might have been extreme, but why not let Clone War troopers fight against Republic-era troopers? Like, why would you not allow different things to happen, like Resistance faction battling against Rebel factions? It's a video game. Well, apply that same logic to Halo. Let it happen. I want to see Doom Guy, for sure. I want to see Master Chief. Not Master Chief. I want to see Spartans dressed up in armor that looks like it's out of Fallout, but with a Halo twist. That would be awesome. Why not do that? That's exactly what we should do. If a Spartan doesn't Das Rodame with a punch off of the ring, what are we even doing? What are we even doing? I don't know. Last question comes from my man, Mr. Dano. Different from Daniel M., I might add. Dano says, has InsipidGhost ever claimed to have seen or felt a ghost nearby? Dano, let me regale you. I have felt the presence of a ghost. I've felt the presence of something otherworldly in my life. Do I believe in ghosts? Not as it were. Not as you might think with your Casper level stuff, but the world is vast and we're all interconnected in ways that we can't even see. So why not think there is a plane of existence out there that exists overlaid with ours? I'm talking about the Force, Dano. The Force is real. All right, guys, that's it for XEP this week. No, it's not. That's it for my portion of XEP this week. We're going to be talking to the founder of Apogee Entertainment. And if you're wondering who Apogee is or what Apogee is, they were back in the 90s the original indie publisher. They published games like Doom, Duke Nukem, things like that. They went out and did the thing back in the original 90s. And now they're back and they've got a new game that they're publishing called Residual. which is super cool, and I'm really in on as far as the art style goes. I've not played it at the time of this recording yet, but I know I plan to. They've got a couple games coming out, called one of them being called Elements, which Patricia Somerset is voicing a character in. You might know her from Breath of the Wild as Zelda. They've got a lot of stuff going. Apogee Entertainment looking kind of cool, fun in the indie space there. I think you'll enjoy this interview. I found it very enlightening, and I really enjoyed myself with it. Now that's it for my portion. You guys have a wonderful week. You can find me on Twitter at InsipidGhost. You can email me, insipidghost@gmail.com. I always love getting those emails. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care, everybody. I am very fortunate to welcome now to the show Scott Miller, founder of the newly reformed Apogee Entertainment. Scott, welcome to XEP.
Definitely glad to be here, Luke.
I'm ecstatic to have you on. I know that Apogee is in its reformation and we're reintroducing players to it. I would love it if you would give listeners a bit of background on just what Apogee Entertainment was and what it is you're looking forward to being in the future.
Well, we originally started as just Apogee Software back in the early 1990s. And back then, we kind of got our start doing some very simple little, games that, had 4 colors or it was CGA mode. Then we got to EGA. And we kind of really hit it big when we started working with some outside teams like id Software. We actually helped put together id Software back in the day and funded their first game, Commander Keen, and that took off really well. And that really allowed both our company and their company to grow. And we also did Wolfstein 3D, which is the first of the first-person shooters to ever be released. We created the original Duke Nukem back in 1992. So we were actually working with a lot of external authors back in the day, funding projects, helping design them, do all the marketing, do all the distribution. We were using BBS systems and later the internet for our distribution back in the day. And we were the company that kind of pioneered that whole end of things. That's
like old shareware style stuff?
Yeah. Back then it was called shareware for sure. So in 1994, we created a new division called 3D Realms because we saw that 3D games were really the future, and we wanted to have a label dedicated just to that. And our first game we released under that label was Terminal Velocity, and then we did Duke Nukem 3D, Shadow Warrior, Max Payne, Prey. So a lot of games. We stopped using the Apogee label, and 3D Realms continued. But my current partner, Terry Nagy, he was able to get the full rights to Apogee from 3D Realms a couple years ago, and he approached me and said he wanted to relaunch the label, and so I was all for it. And so we decided to relaunch strictly as an indie level publisher and find indie teams that are out there that probably have never published before, but they have like a very promising project. And so we felt like if we could find these hidden nuggets that are out there, we could bring them extra funding, bring them marketing, do the trailers for them, make sure their games get ported on all the systems, do all the quality assurance and localization, just handle all that stuff that publishers typically do, but we'll be doing it for these indie teams to help them get their companies started. And this is kind of what we were doing back in the 90s. We basically got id Software started. We got Parallax Software started. They did Descent. We got Remedy started with their first game, Death Rally, and then, of course, Max Payne. So we were doing a lot of this back in the 90s, and we're kind of like going back to our roots by doing it now.
Certainly seems so. I mean, when you look at the pantheon of games that you guys have really helped start, some of them doing very well today, others have been rebooted themselves. I mean, the history of Apogee has to be both exciting and feel like a bit of a weight there. Is there any pressure that you guys feel based on the previous catalog, or is it strictly looking forward?
Yeah, I don't feel any pressure whatsoever. I mean, it's good to have that sort of the glory years of success from the 90s and 2000s behind us, because that's really helped us sort of relaunch the new Apogee Entertainment.
Hmm.
It's amazing. Every developer that we've approached, they know the name, I would have thought that for a lot of people, especially the younger developers, that name's kind of forgotten. But weirdly, they seem to know the name. And if they don't know the name, but so far that hasn't actually happened, they'll definitely know the games that we can talk about, like Max Payne and Duke, Rise of the Triad, and Prey. So all these
Right.
games are people obviously recognize. So when we approach them, we start off on the right foot in terms of like having good credibility right off the bat and good awareness. We're not just we don't come across as just some new company trying to get into the game late stage. We've got a big track record, a history. We clearly have experience, so it really does give us a leg up.
Certainly seems so. I mean, it certainly seems so. And for any listener that goes and checks out Apogee's YouTube channel, you'll see several indie titles there that range from top-down pixelated games to 3D zombie shooters. There's a lot to look forward to, I think, in the Apogee catalog. Uh, to go from the first indie publisher now to this rebirth is exciting. What was the first project that you guys took on this new label?
Well, it was Residual. Um, that was a game that I happened to see that was on Kickstarter, and it just really captured my imagination. I liked sort of the retro pixelated look of it, um, and I was able to take a look at the developer's video blogs, and he published it. He was publishing like one a week, very high quality, like 10-minute video blogs. Really kind of showing behind the scenes of how his development was going and everything. I liked that the game, had all sorts of different elements to it. Exploration, crafting. It was procedurally generated. He had decided to go sort of like with a non-violent style of gameplay, so it's more about puzzle solving than shooting down creatures on these planets that you discover.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it just had lots of layers to it, so I was really taken by it. And when I talked to him, he's like the one developer who's got quite a track record. I think Residual is his 10th game. Um, and they're all kind of done in that same sort of hand drawn pixel format. And he's really got a system down, a development system down, and he really understands gameplay at this point. So, I mean, he was the first one we went after, and we were really lucky to get him, I think, because, like I said, he had already released a bunch of games on his own and had it down. He didn't really necessarily need us, but he kind of saw the value in getting ported to the different systems, getting some extra money to extend development, us bringing on, like we brought on a voice acting talent to sort of bring life to one of the characters in the game, this little robot that kind of follows you around, adds like some humor to the game. So we did quite a bit we brought quite a bit to the game, and I think it worked out really well.
Well, and for any listener, Scott keeps using the word he, and he's referring to the one man developer behind Orange Pixel who is making Residual, Pascal. That's a dope thing to be a one man developer. Is that an exciting kind of tip of the hat to get to work with somebody that's kind of the sole proprietor of their work?
Yeah, and that's not that uncommon nowadays. It seems like really all the teams that we're working with are either 1 to 3 people. And what's just completely mind blowing nowadays is that that's even possible. Um, for instance, I guess later on we're going to talk about a game Elements, and when we first saw that game on Steam, it was like, damn, I mean that's an impressive looking game, and then
Mm-hmm.
to find out it's just one guy was really kind of mind blowing, because to do what he's doing back in the 90s would have taken a team of 20 to 30 people. But nowadays, this is what makes the indie scene so exciting nowadays is that you know the engines are out there. They're very mature. They're very easy to use. They do a lot of the work for you. And there's marketplaces out there that you can buy. If you need a certain AI system, you can get that, and it's not going to be that expensive. If you need a certain animation system, you can get that. If you need models and assets, you can buy these things for the cheap. And so that's what he's been doing. That's what this developer for Elements has been doing. He's been buying a ton of stuff, and since he's an animator by trade, that's his one true. That's his key skill. He takes these models that he's buying and he animates them in some new ways. He redresses them up and makes them very unique just for the game that he's making. So it's just he's making an open world game that's about 1/4 the size of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And so far, it's just been a one man operation. But now that we're getting involved, we're giving him advances. We're going to grow the team probably to 4 to 6 people. And that's going to greatly speed up development. But still, it's unbelievable that a 4 to 6 person team can make a game that's basically 1/4 the size of Breath of the Wild. But that's kind of where we are nowadays. And all of these teams that we're working with are definitely benefiting from the fact that we live in a different world now. It's so different. No longer do you have to build everything from scratch like we did in the 90s. And no longer also is it all about having the best graphics like we had in the 90s. Back in the 90s, there's always a race to who can have the best engine for their game and so on. But nowadays, you can release games that that don't have to have the most cutting edge graphics, and they can still do extremely well. It's become its own sort of genre or aesthetic to have games that look pixelated or hand drawn or retro in some way. So we just live in a very different world now than we did in the 90s. And frankly, I think it's a better world.
I am inclined to agree with you, particularly given the amount of games, the genres of games that people can get their hands on, either through straight purchases, multiple storefronts, from anything ranging from Steam and GOG all the way to PlayStation, Switch, Xbox, the standards. There's just so many games out there to have their hands on. And it was Residual that brought this conversation on about you and I. So I'm thrilled to hear that it was kind of y'all's first efforts here. And for context, again, I want to tell listeners, this game, it reminds me a lot of like Zeo Drifter and some of the 2D sprite based platform puzzlers. I'm very excited for it. And I can't wait for people to see it and for myself to go hands on with it. When you see games like this and they do pique your interest, what is the process or conversation like in terms of approaching them? Are you seeing them at like a PAX style event or a GDC or just on YouTube? I mean, you've answered a little bit, but can you go a little bit more in depth about the process of working with these different developers?
Sure. Well, I mean, all the games that we've signed so far, we live in a COVID world now, and all the game conventions have been closed for the last year and a half. So we haven't been going to anything like that to find the games. We've found them all online. Like another one that we found online, also on Kickstarter, was a game called Below the Stone, and that's another sort of hand-drawn, pixelated, sort of retro throwback-looking game. But it's got all these interlocking systems and deep gameplay systems, and it's going to be a really fascinating game. So we're finding these games online, and we also like in the case of Elements, that game was actually referred to us by Pascal, and
That's cool.
What we do is within Apogee, we have a pretty cool referral program, so people can make money by referring us games. If we sign the game, you get a check. Simple as that. So we've turned our developers into scouts for us. So these guys are all deeply ingrained in the indie scene, so they're really really good at spotting nuggets. And so Elements is definitely one that came from the referral program that we have within our company. And as soon as I saw that game, I was really kind of just blown away by the look of it, by the animation, by the story that was being put into place. So we reached out to that author. He's based in Nova Scotia, Canada, and it took about 6 weeks to put together a deal with him. So that's one of our gems for sure in our catalog. I forget what the question was, so I don't know where to go from here.
If it makes you feel better, I forget what the question was too. My mind is racing to all the next questions because this is so cool. I want to talk about that referral program. I want to talk about elements. Let's focus on elements for a moment. In looking at screenshots from this game, this is a third-person adventure game. It is reminiscent of some of the more bright and colorful looking games. I'm thinking about Breath of the Wild for a very good reason, given the voice talent that you have behind one of the characters being Patricia Somerset from Zelda Breath of the Wild. Talk to me about elements and what you've got going on for it.
Well,
Yeah, tell me about this game that has a lot of things you could touch on. What you got?
well, I mean, the developer really struck us as being just really, I mean, really all of our developers are in the same boat. They're all very passionate about their projects. And the developer for Elements is no exception. His name is Devin Parsons. And he's really kind of trying to make a game that uh, kind of brings a lot of his family values to the game. So it's almost like he wanted a bit of a moral story that his children, he's got a boy and a girl, to learn from, and his actual girl is the same name as the female, the star of the game, Naya, and he was actually having his daughter, who's 9 years old, do the voice work. That's who you hear in the trailer that's on Steam now, the older trailer, and so we here at Apogee, we were, reviewing the trailer and what his plans were to voice that character. And he thought that he could have his daughter do it. And we were like, she's only 9. She's probably not going to give the best voice performance. And, let's think about some other people. And it turns out that one of the guys that works with Apogee, Jaron Moore, he used to be the producer of the Traveling Symphony for Nintendo that did the Zelda Symphony. They had played in New York and London and Dallas and LA. And he got to know a lot of people within Nintendo really well, including Patricia. They were actually friends. And so it occurred to him, maybe she would like to do something like this. And so he reached out to her, kind of gave a little background on the game and everything and on the character. And Patricia just seemed to be like overjoyed to be considered for this. And so we had some calls with her, and it just all fell into place. So, we couldn't be more thrilled to have someone with that level of talent, associated with this game. And for the game itself, it's an open world game. You get to explore it in any way you want. You've got these sort of nature based elemental stones that have been captured by, of course, the bad side. And your quest is to sort of regain control of these, because in the wrong hands, they can lead to the whole kingdom of Elemithia to go the wrong way. So the game's got all these different areas and cave systems and landscapes and to explore. There's lots of puzzle solving. There's crafting. Of course, there's combat, and each time you recover one of these crystals, in whatever order you decide to do it, it actually gives you sort of a new talent or ability. So we think that by having it, by doing that, it adds like a level of replayability in the game, because if you gain the crystal of light before at first, that's going to give you certain abilities. And if you replay the game, you might go get the crystals in a different order, and then you'll have these certain abilities earlier in the game than you did the first time you played it. So, and also you can play as Naya's brother too, and we're also looking at putting a co-op mode in the game where you can play both at once.
How exciting! How exciting! And given the weight and the talent that someone like Miss Somerset has, given the ambition of the game, but also the scope, I think that's a really cool thing. And all the more noticeable in your story is just how creative and loving games can be, but also how small the gaming world is and how you guys got connected and I love that idea. Does it stand out to you? I guess on the outside looking in, it stands out to me how well or how small the gaming community can be. Is that something that you see also?
Yeah, I think you're right on the money there. And it's it's actually really nice in that it seems like it's not too difficult to reach out to people, and it just seems like if I don't personally know someone, I know someone who's going to know someone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it rarely ever seems I'm more than 1 degree removed from reaching out to someone that we might want to get involved with one of our projects or that can help us in some way, or some sort of talent, voice talent or artistic talent or just whatever it might be. So yeah, this industry, I mean, it makes more money it seems than the film industry, but on the other end, it does seem to be a pretty tight community, to a pretty small industry in the fact that everyone seems to know everyone.
Brilliant, brilliant. Residuals, September 9th. Elements is sometime in 2022 at this point in development where we're thinking it's going to be. And you guys have several other games in your pantheon that I want to touch on. But you mentioned the referral program earlier. That is the first time I'm hearing of something like that within gaming. Is that my ignorance talking? Is this something that happens commonly, or is this something that is more specific to Apogee?
I can't imagine that we're the only ones doing it, but I don't think I've heard of this before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it just makes sense that we're working with these developers who, like I said, they're out there, amongst the grass, where all this stuff is happening in the indie scene.
Mm-hmm.
They've got their own like Discord servers and Twitter files, and people are reaching out to them. They're reaching out to people, so they're going to spot things that maybe we don't spot. And so we've just made it very clear to them that, hey, if you spot something and you refer it to us, and we end up signing it, you benefit from it.
That's neat. That's neat. If listeners go and visit the Apogee Entertainment website, they're treated to a bit of humor, I thought, and I got a little head chuckle as I looked at the 2022 showcase video you guys have, where John St. John, the original voice of Duke Nukem, kind of narrates what it is you guys have done and you're looking forward to. And there's other games on display apart from Residual, and I got a good chuckle out of those too. Secret Agent was one that stood out with a James Bond inspired theme song, but the game looks nothing like I would have expected.
Right. Well, I mean, that game was actually made 30 years ago. And
What?
yeah,
What? Look
yeah,
at my own ignorance shining.
that was one of our original releases in the 90s. So um, we've remastered it so it looks, a lot better. We've added music to it because the original release didn't even have any music. We added a whole fourth episode to it. We've added better save and restore functions. We've added a way for you to make your own levels now. So it's got a level editing tool that you can now share levels. And there's literally been, hundreds and hundreds of levels that we've seen already shared out there. So, we can do things now that we didn't even think about doing back then. And so what we're doing is we're kind of cherry picking some of the better games that were released in the 90s. And we actually don't even own the rights to these games. What we do is we go back and actually we approach the original authors, and we basically have to cut a new deal with them and say, hey, we'd love to remaster your game, and and you'll get obviously a royalty share out of it and everything. And so far, everyone that we've approached has agreed because it's kind of like why not? So yeah, we've done Crystal Cave so far. We've done Secret Agent, and we're currently working on Monster Bash, which is kind of one of our bigger side-scrolling titles from the early half of the 90s. And we have a few more on the way also.
I'm so grateful for you telling me this, for realizing what it is you guys are actually doing there, because at the time of this recording, we've already I've already recorded an interview with members of the old Electronic Gaming Monthly team that now run Player One podcast, and we talked a lot about game preservation, game restoration, and seeing to it that older titles and franchises don't go by the wayside. To find out that you guys are also cutting new deals and allowing remasters to take place and editing of old games, or I should say, be adding to old games to give things like level editors. That's such a good and important element, I think, to this industry, because at the moment there's not a lot of mainstay systematic preservation from one publisher to the next. Things can get lost by the wayside too easily.
Yeah, very much agree. And we love doing it. It's kind of like these are like small side projects for us, but we have someone really, really good at doing it. Doing this full time, and these are not, of course, big money makers for us, but they're more like passion projects for us.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we love preserving this past that we were once involved with, and we do get a surprisingly positive reaction from releasing these games. There's definitely people who grew up playing these games, and they're super excited to see them come back in a sort of improved form, and with new features, and we add a new episode every time we release one of these things. So you basically get 10 more levels that you never got the chance to play before. So yeah, it's fun for us, and we have a certain set of fans who seem to like it a lot too.
As I mentioned earlier, Residual is what kind of brought us together. That's coming to Xbox One and several other platforms. My understanding is that it can be complicated getting certain games on certain platforms. As the publisher, is there, when you're soliciting different developers for games, is there an intention to release a game on a certain platform? Is it entirely up to the developer? Can you push for certain things? Is there something that you guys as a publisher prefer, certain platforms you prefer?
Well, the developer always has the final say for a lot of this stuff, but we're very much aligned on what we want. And I don't think there's any reason that a developer is going to say, "Well, I don't want my game on the Xbox or the Switch." I mean, they're all
Mm-hmm.
for it. So when we approach them, they've usually only got one platform in mind, usually the PC.
Mm-hmm.
We say, "Hey, let's try and simultaneously release it on all the platforms." Excuse me. And they love that, so it's not a problem at all. Now, there might be some of our games that, for instance, can't run on certain platforms. We haven't encountered that yet, but that could be a possibility in the future. And yes, we have actually found it to be nothing short of a nightmarish process to get to get sort of signed up with certain console manufacturers
Mm-hmm.
that I won't name, but there's
Yeah,
not that many.
no need to name. No need to name.
It's such a difficult, mind-numbing, complicated, traps everywhere, gotchas everywhere. It's just I don't know why it's made to be so difficult. Um, and we don't Apogee, we don't even have an office. We do from home. We work from home, and
Mm-hmm.
there's one manufacturer out there who doesn't want to. Uh, they're having a major problem if you have a home address. And I'm thinking, how do most
God.
indies out there probably only work from home. So how does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just been one crazy, in my opinion, unnecessary hurdle after another. And the fact that this has been so weirdly difficult, it just blows my mind. I wish that these major console manufacturers would review their processes and be way more, developer or publisher friendly in this respect. Because, if I was running these places, I would certainly uh, make things a lot easier because it's just crazy the way it is now.
Okay. Then if there is an unnamed platform that is difficult to work with, that implies that there are some that are easier to work with. What can major platform holders do to make your job as a publisher easier? Like, what types of norms would you hope to see adopted by some of the ones that can be more difficult?
Honestly, it's my partner Terry who's been doing all that stuff.
Hmm.
So I don't really have a great answer. I just see, we see the messages
Sure.
within our Apogee area. Him like, oh God, another hurdle. They rejected it for this silly reason. Oh, we left a period off of here and they rejected us. It's just craziness. So I just hear the bad side of things. So I don't really have a good answer on the good side.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Before I get you out of here, there's two games that you guys have currently on your homepage that we've not really had a chance to talk about much. Dead Fury, and it was mentioned, but not much past it. Below the Stone. Anything you want to say about Dead Fury, or what fans might want to look forward to with that one?
Yeah, Dead Fury. I mean, on the face of it, is just basically a zombie survival game, but it's got a lot of unique elements to it. Um, and I mean, one of the things that we're really trying to emphasize here is the fact that it's all based in New Zealand. The developer himself is from New Zealand and lives there. So it's like, well, let's capitalize on this. You don't really see too many games based in New Zealand, and New Zealand, I've actually been there and spent a couple weeks there. It has such a huge variety of sort of landscapes, from rainforest to glaciers, beaches, rolling hills. I mean, this is where uh, um, Lord of the Rings was mostly filmed. So people have an idea of just all the different sort of variety of things you can find there. It's just an incredible country in terms of that. So we're really kind of capitalizing on that. Um, and we also feel like we have a really cool sort of unfolding progressive story in the game that has lots of twists and turns in it. Um, you play a protagonist who thinks he's on the right side, trying to find the cure and everything, and turns out you're working for the wrong guys. And anyway, that's
Oh man, that's how they get you, Scott. That's how they get you right there.
but anyway, I mean, every side seems to have its own sort of bad motives, and so this kind of unfolds during the whole game. Um, and we're going to have like a skill tree system in the game, an economy in there uh, for dealing with different things. Anyway, the game's going to have a lot of fun elements, and we're going to keep it very raw too. So it's not going to be like an overly complicated game. We want you to be able to dive in and start having fun right away, and make progress right away, and see new landscapes. So it's going to be a very sort of fast-moving game. You're going to see a lot, do a lot, learn a lot of lore. The story's kind of cool. We actually explain, how this whole thing got started on Earth. There's a great story that kind of that I don't think has been seen like in a zombie game before. That kind of like explains it really well. So yeah, there's I think it's gonna be a really really fun game.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Scott Miller, founder of the newly reformed Apogee Entertainment, very fortunate to have had you on this week. Thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything you'd like to plug social wise, or places that players should look for upcoming games or content?
I mean, we have a webpage, apogeeent.com. So there's three E's in there, and that has the links to all of our social media that if people want to check it out. So that's the place to go.
Excellent, excellent. And I will once again plug the game Residual, coming out this week at the time this interview launches on multiple platforms. That's the game that brought you and I together. That's from Orange Pixel. Scott, once again, thanks for joining me, man.
It's been my pleasure.